Heartwarming moment, boy shockingly chooses his housekeeper over 5 wealthy women discover why. Jake sat at the kitchen table, a crumpled piece of paper in front of him, ink smeared from his teary eyes. The scholarship contest loomed like a gigantic mountain over his head, with 5 affluent classmates ready to flaunt their privilege. Yet, in this moment, Jake found solace in the familiar aroma of home-cooked beans and rice wafting in from the stove, where Elena stood, her sturdy hands working diligently. If anyone understood the weight of dreams, it was her, with each lesson shared over meal preparations, the way the spices mingled, the laughter that danced around the kitchen. Elena taught him more than just how to fold laundry. She imparted the values of loyalty and integrity, instilling within him a sense of worth that glittered brighter than any gold medal. Elena had been his anchor amid life's storms, often reminding him that true success lay in the heart. She wasn't just a housekeeper, she was family, but as the scholarship deadline approached, the whispers of affluence from his classmates grew louder. Jake watched as they casually tossed around the names of private schools and trusts, dazzling him with promises of an easy future and existence he could hardly imagine. Each boast felt like a weight pressing down on his chest, squeezing the very essence of his dreams. He often found himself feeling small, an outsider peering into a world that sparkled but didn't feel quite right. The day his heart sank like a stone, Jake learned about Elena's looming eviction. She shared it over dinner, her voice steady but her eyes reflecting sorrow. "I don't know where I'll go, Jake." His heart thundered in his chest as a wave of helplessness washed over him. The world outside might seem bright and fair, but here, behind closed doors, the truth of life often remained hidden. The struggle, the pain. Jake's assignment began to shift before his eyes. He sat down to write about his own aspirations, but the narrative came to a screeching halt as he thought of Elena. He tossed aside his initial ideas and focused on her remarkable journey, the resilience she exhibited every day. Her story echoed with hope, love, and sacrifice. Each line he penned tugged at his heart. "Elena has faced trials that shape her into the warrior she is," he wrote, dizzy with emotion. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As he continued to weave her story into his own aspirations, Jake wrestled with his heart's tug-of-war. Should he play the game and mold his essay to fit the contest's demands, or should he honor the lesson Elena had instilled within him? He could almost see the trophy shining, but the closer it drew, the hollower it felt, a fleeting symbol of empty success. He was running out of time, and as the final deadline loomed, so did a moment of truth. Could he redefine success in a world that often celebrated wealth over worth? Would the easy path offer him satisfaction, or would he choose to embrace the power of love and community? His heart raced at the thought, leaving Jake at a crossroads, a decision that could shape his very essence. The sun began to sink low, casting a warm glow through the kitchen window as Jake sat frozen in thought. He heard the soft rhythm of Elena's cooking behind him, the reassuring sound of her stirring a pot, her hum barely audible. In that moment, it felt like the kitchen was shielding him from the clamor of the outside world, wrapping him in a cocoon of warmth. Jake picked up his pen again, gripping it tightly. His heart raced as he envisioned the prestigious banquet hall where the contest results would be announced. The tension among the classmates would be palpable, their tailored clothes and polished shoes a stark contrast to his scuffed sneakers and faded jeans. Would they see him as he was, or would he always just be the boy from the other side of the tracks? Suddenly, the door creaked open, and Jake's little sister, Mia, bounded in. Her laughter was infectious, brightening the room and breaking his heavy thoughts. "Jake! Come outside. You have to see what I made," she squealed, her excitement pulling him from his reverie. He pushed back his chair, following her outside. Mia had been busy building a makeshift fort in their backyard, setting up blankets and pillows like it was her own secret hideaway. The sight of her beaming face reignited a flicker of hope within him. What was a success if not something worth sharing with family? "Look. I'm the queen of this fort," she declared, posing dramatically as if on a royal throne. Her innocence filled him with warmth. As he crouched beside her, running his fingers over the fabric, a thought struck him. What if he could write his essay not just to win but to share the beauty of these moments? To express how love and family surpassed any riches one may possess. Elena's unwavering strength, Mia's joyful spark, those were the treasures worth showcasing. "Hey, Mia," he said, his voice soft with newfound conviction. "Do you think I could write about our family in my essay? About how you make our house feel like home?" "Of course. It's the best part," she replied, her eyes wide with enthusiasm. "Tell them about the fort." As laughter filled the air, his burden lightened. He knew what he had to do. The deadline loomed like a storm cloud, but within him blossomed a fierce determination. He wouldn't just write an essay, he would share a testament to love, resilience, and family. Returning to the kitchen, he resumed writing with fierce resolve. He wove Elena's story through his own, tying in smiles, lessons of strength, and the richness of humble moments. Each word felt right, each sentence solidified his purpose. But somewhere beneath that resolve lay a nagging doubt. What if the judges were unmoved by his authenticity? What if they sought the flashy tales of wealth and privilege instead? A chill ran through him as he closed his eyes for a moment, imagining the judges' faces. Would they see him? His breath steady as he scribbled the final sentence of his essay, he felt a flicker of dread intermingled with hope. What if he chose the path of true worth but watched his dreams slip away? With his heart pounding, Jake laid down his pen, the ink still fresh. Would he be brave enough to stand behind his story when it mattered most? As he glanced at the clock ticking incessantly on the wall, he knew the moment of truth was approaching fast, and everything hinged on that one decision. Would he risk it all, and if he did, what would that mean for both him and Elena? As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple, Jake let the weight of the world rest on his shoulders, feeling both terrified and ready for whatever might come next. Jake sat at the table, fingers lightly drumming against the surface as he stared at the blank page before him. The essay was done, but the shadow of self-doubt lingered over him like a dark cloud. His thoughts flickered back to the reaction he might receive, a room full of the privileged, ticking through the papers, searching for something grand and extravagant. Would his words resonate, or would they be deemed unworthy? His mind wandered to Elena. She was in the next room, the gentle sound of her voice blending with the simmering of the food. She never asked for much and never pushed for recognition. To her, love was often wrapped in the simple acts of cooking, cleaning, and nurturing. He remembered how she'd always catch a call from the school or the local community center, tirelessly volunteering. Even though she didn't speak of her sacrifices, it was clear her heart brimmed with hopes for him and Mia. Jake took a deep breath, the bittersweet taste of uncertainty lingering. He needed comfort. "Mia?" he called out. She came bounding into the kitchen, cheeks flushed from the excitement of her fort. "Will you help me with something? I'm the queen. I can do anything," she declared, puffing out her tiny chest. That he smiled. "Can you tell me what home feels like to you?" She didn't hesitate. "Home is when I'm with you and Mom. It's our fort and the way we laugh together. And the food. All the snacks Mom makes. It tastes like hugs." Hugs, those words warmed Jake's heart, and they echoed in his mind as he wrote. He wrote about laughter and love, about slamming doors and late-night whispers. About siblings huddling together in a fort, pretending to be kings and queens, where worries didn't exist. His fingers flew over the paper as if it had a mind of its own. With each word, the weight on his shoulders began to lighten. He envisioned stepping onto the stage, not just as a competitor, but as a representative of those who appreciated the small joys in life, the warmth of 1,000 cups of cocoa, the giggles shared over family dinners, the quiet strength of a woman who sacrificed everything for her loved ones. Mia leaned in closer, peering at the sentences as though they were secrets on a treasure map. "Can I read it?" she asked eagerly. "What you see, you must keep a secret." "I haven't shared it with anyone yet," he replied, a playful tone uplifting the moment. "Cross my heart." "I promise," she chimed, crossing her little fingers over her heart. Jake handwrote parts of his essay in kid-friendly terms so that Mia could understand. "This is about how you and Mom make life feel like a fairy tale," he told her. The way her eyes shone with joy filled him with a renewed vigor. Just then, Elena entered the room, the aroma of the evening meal wafting in, wrapping around them like a blanket. "What's all this?" she inquired, spotting the scattered notes and Mia's eager expression. "Jake is writing about us," Mia exclaimed, bouncing on the balls of her feet. "And how I'm the queen of the fort." Elena's eyes softened, pride shining through them. "I love this idea. Writing about home is important, sweetheart." Jake felt a lump in his throat. In that instant, all thoughts of judgment faded. This wasn't just an essay about winning, it was a tribute to his life, to them. It was real. But the creeping fear returned, whispering questions in his ear. What if the contest was about more than words? What if he had to stand before them all and defend his choices? The clock ticked louder, a countdown to the truth he'd have to face. Tomorrow would bring the competition, and he'd step into that spotlight. The thought twisted nervously in his stomach. Jake grabbed his pen again, ready to finalize his words and share his heart. He knew the journey wouldn't be easy, but perhaps, just perhaps, it was exactly what he needed. Would he find the courage to voice his truth in front of those who may never truly understand the depth of his love? A knot formed again in his stomach, tightening as he realized the battle wasn't just with the judges, but with himself. The morning light filtered through the window, gently illuminating the kitchen. Jake was already up, pacing the floor with restless energy. He could hear the sizzling pan and Elena humming softly, the kitchen filled with warmth. But instead of comforting, the routine felt heavy today, like a worn-out coat he couldn't shake off. "Mia," he called out, knowing she would be awake soon. The anticipation was building, each tick of the clock driving the nerves deeper. He saw her sleepy form peek around the corner, tugging her blanket with her as she yawned. "Are you nervous, Dad?" she asked innocently, her eyes wide with concern. "Just a little," he confessed, crouching down to wrap his arms around her. "But I'll be okay. You're my lucky charm, remember?" Mia giggled, her contagious laughter piercing through some of his worries. "I'll always be here when you need me. Like a magic fairy." The sound of happiness filled the room. It always did when Mia was around. Jake straightened up, kissed his daughter's forehead, and returned to the dining table. The essay was unfurled before him, words that were once jumbled thoughts now solidified into a message of love. "Breakfast's ready," Elena called from the kitchen, her voice cutting through his concentration. Jake joined them, the familiar smells of pancakes and maple syrup surrounding him. As the family sat together, he couldn't help but feel grateful. This moment felt like treasure, something to hold tightly as the day ahead loomed. "I want to hear about the contest," Elena said, cutting into a pancake. "What are you going to talk about? Just the essay?" Jake nodded, trying to gauge her reaction. "I think it's more than that. I want to share what home means to me. Sharing who we are. Us." Elena's eyes twinkled with pride. "That's beautiful. You have a gift, Jake. You always have." Something inside him swelled at her encouraging words. Yet, doubt still lingered, like an uninvited guest. What if they didn't get it? What if they dismissed everything he had to say? After breakfast, they moved to the living room. Mia was busy arranging her toys like a little stage setup while Jake read through his essay again, the words beginning to feel foreign, almost heavy with expectation. He wanted it to mean something, to resonate with those who had never experienced the same kind of love. He steeled himself, bringing it up again. You know, I wonder if I should share our whole story, the small things. Like how we have fun together at the market, or our silly dance parties in the kitchen. Or how you always spread joy wherever you go. That's perfect, Elena chimed in fervently. Let them see who we are, Jake. Show them the heart of our family. The real treasure in life isn't always sparkly or loud, it's simple and bright. The weight of her words wrapped around him. Perhaps she was right. Maybe their little family, the laughter, the chaos, the love, these were the things that mattered most. As he stood to leave, a wave of uncertainty surged once more. Could he really lay everything bare? Expose his heart and trust it would be accepted? When he arrived at the venue later, he felt swallowed by the grandiosity of it all, the polished floors, the vibrant banners, the crowd looking like a sea of expectant faces. As he approached the stage, his heart raced. With each hesitant step, he could feel Elena's words echoing in his mind, show them the heart of our family. He grasped the microphone, trying to steady his trembling hands. The eyes of the crowd fell on him, a mix of curiosity and judgment. A moment stretched thin before him, and he opened his mouth to speak, but just as he was about to begin, a child's laughter floated in from somewhere backstage. It was pure, unguarded, and he could practically feel Mia's warmth enveloping him again. In that moment, he felt a spark ignite inside him. Did he dare speak, not just for himself, but for every soul who found comfort in the ordinary? He took a deep breath, ready to share the love that courageously filled his life, and yet, as he looked out at the crowd, an unsettling thought crept in. What would happen if his words didn't land as he hoped? The spotlight felt like a giant, glaring eye, and he realized the journey to his truth was only just beginning. Jake blinked, the room fading somewhat as he lost himself in thought. The audience blurred into a backdrop of shifting faces and persistent murmurs. He felt that familiar knot in his stomach, but there was something different this time. It was as if the warmth of Mia's laughter wrapped around him, a protective shield against the doubt gnawing at him. Take a breath, he whispered to himself, recalling the morning spent with Elena and Mia, where a simple moment became a treasure. Steadying himself, he opened his eyes once more. Instead of focusing on the crowd's expectations, he thought of home, the sticky hands, the mismatched socks, the laughter that sometimes spilled over like the pancake batter from breakfast. Okay, he said softly, but the microphone seemed to amplify his voice, breaking through the chatter. The weight of their gaze turned into a soft glow, a gentle encouragement. I want to share a story about love, about family. His voice wavered but steadied. Coming from a place that may look ordinary, but is anything but. He glanced at the front row where Elena and Mia sat, beaming at him, and felt his heart swell. Jake took a deep breath, and words poured out like a river breaking free from its dam. He spoke of evenings spent in the living room, how they created their own rituals and traditions, stuffing themselves with popcorn while watching movies that somehow always led to impromptu dance parties. Their laughter, whether during serious moments or when the fish they'd cooked ended up burnt, colored their lives with joy. Home isn't just a building. It's a feeling, a collection of moments that remind you of who you are, he continued, feeling the connection with the crowd grow stronger. A few heads nodded, and he saw understanding in their eyes, which fueled his determination. Jake described how Mia's art projects, the crayon scribbles and glittery remnants, adorned their walls, how they represented dreams and fears, laughter and cries. He spoke about Elena's unwavering strength, the way she turned ordinary days into remarkable memories. With every word, he felt uplifted, knowing he wasn't just talking about himself but voicing a shared experience. Every family, every home, had its own rhythm, its own unique song. But as he spoke about the warmth that surrounded them, a flicker of doubt threatened to cloud his thoughts again. What if they still didn't understand? What if his words slipped through their fingers like sand? In that moment, Jake decided he wouldn't let fear dictate his message. Every home has its struggles, but those stories deserve light, too. I stand here not just for recognition but to remind us that we're all connected by love, by the little things that make life worthwhile. The audience was silent now, reflecting. Jake could feel the palpable tension shift, a wave of understanding washing over him. Then, one child in the front started clapping, followed by another. Slowly, like vines wrapping around themselves, the clapping grew louder, filling the hall with warmth. He smiled, a tear slipping down his cheek. "Thank you for letting me share my family's story. It's a reminder that love is found in the simplest of moments." As the applause echoed in his ears, Jake felt light, as if the burdens that had weighed on his heart were dissolving. Maybe the magic of home was indeed worth fighting for. But just as he thought he had found his footing, a heavy silence fell again, and he noticed a shadowy figure at the back of the room, someone with eyes that seemed to pierce through him. Was it someone from his past, or had he simply imagined it? His heart raced, uncertainty creeping back. What did it mean that this person was there? Suddenly the warmth of the applause felt like a distant memory, and the crowd blurred as he struggled to make sense of the unexpected. Was his story about to run into the path of something darker, something that could unravel everything he had just begun to build? Jake's heart pounded in his chest. The applause faded, replaced by a thick blanket of confusion wrapping around him. He squinted into the distance, trying to make sense of the silhouette standing at the periphery of the room. The figure seemed to loom larger with every second that passed, shifting from an abstract worry into a familiar presence that pushed its way into his mind. As he gripped the microphone tighter, he fought the urge to run, to hide behind the warmth of his family's memory. "What do you want?" he whispered to himself, knowing well that this wasn't just an intruding shadow. It was a reminder of everything he fought to escape. Murmurs from the audience picked up again, but this time they sounded distant, like an echo from a cave far away. Jake turned briefly to check on Elena and Mia, but their concerned faces barely registered over the growing dread that swelled within him. The moment he needed them most, the certainty he felt just moments ago vanished into air. Calming his breath while he tried to glance back to the figure, he couldn't shake the instinct that it was someone he knew, someone important. The way the light caught their features made his skin prickle, sending a wave of chills down his spine. Suddenly, all the words he had shared felt inadequate, as if they were drawn from a well that had run dry. "Jake," the voice rippled through the silence, a familiar timbre that made his blood run cold. It was familiar yet tainted with something darker, something unresolved. "Don't," he found himself saying aloud before he could think it through, his voice cracking as the shadows of the past loomed closer, beckoning him like an old friend with sinister motives. The room fluctuated with energy, the air thickening around him. Had he really thought he could stand here, bearing his soul about family and love, without facing the specters of his past? The very thing he had been celebrating began to feel like a ruse, a fragile structure built on shaky ground. "Jake, you can't run forever." The figure stepped into the light, revealing a familiar face that sent his heart into a tailspin. It was Jason, an old friend. No, a ghost was closer to the truth. "What are you doing here?" Jake demanded, suddenly defensive, the warmth of connection he felt with the audience evaporating, replaced by the heavy baggage of history between them. The laughter and bond he had celebrated now felt tarnished next to this confrontation. "I came to find you," Jason said, and the honesty in his eyes was like a strike of lightning, illuminating the darkness that had crept in. "You've changed, and I wanted to know how and why." Those words landed heavily, sinking deep into Jake's chest. Why? Why had he changed, really? It was never about escaping his past, but something more profound, an understanding of the love that built him up rather than broke him down. As the audience watched in silence, he looked back at them, at the faces that had brought him warmth only moments before. Would they still see him as Jake, the storyteller? Or would Jason alter their perception forever? In that moment, Jake felt the walls he had built begin to tremble. "Dare I ask what you're after?" he challenged, shifting the microphone closer as if it were a shield against the openness that might expose him. He struggled with the urgency, needing to get his footing in the midst of an emotional tempest. but Jason's next words were an unexpected bombshell that cut through the air. "I'm here to tell you it's about time you face the truth about your family and yourself." Jake's heart stopped. What truth? Panic flared within him, the warmth of applause fading into a chilling realization that could either break or mend him. As the weight of those words settled, Jake could feel the eyes of the crowd drifting back and forth between them, curiosity mingling with concern. Would Jason's revelation bind him closer to his truth, or tear apart the family he was still trying to protect? Uncertainty pinched at Jake's heart, and he inhaled sharply as he prepared for whatever was about to unfold. Would he find the courage to embrace the truth, or would the past imprison him once more? Jake's mind raced, memories flooding in like an unstoppable tide. He felt unmoored in front of the audience, the spotlight blinding him to their faces, but impossible to escape. Jason's presence pulled him further down into memories he had sealed away, whispers of laughter backing a painful truth he had bundled tightly for so long. "Jake," Jason began, his voice steady but edged with urgency, "what happened with your father? You can't keep avoiding it, it's who you are." A knot formed in Jake's throat. Even in this moment of confrontation, the air felt thick with unspoken revelations. "You don't understand, Jason." "I'm trying to move on." His words hung in the air, a feeble defense against the past that felt suffocating. "But moving on means understanding where you come from." Jason's eyes searched Jake's, pupils wide and unyielding. "You've built this incredible life, but you're missing a huge piece of the puzzle." Jake shifted his weight, feeling like a marionette caught between strings he didn't break. Confessions swirled in his mind, ghostly echoes of pain and love mingling in the recesses of his heart. He pushed back against the creeping awareness of how his father's abandonment still colored his interactions, how the scars from those formative years shaped the man he was today. What would it mean to confront that truth? Would facing it weaken him, or finally set him free? In that charged silence, he could hear the creaking of the floor beneath him, the whisper of chairs adjusting, and an audience that dared not breathe in the weight of what was unfolding. A bead of sweat trickled down his back, and he recalled the warmth of his family's love, their support that had carried him through each dark moment, and felt torn between honoring that legacy and facing the turmoil beneath it. "Do you remember the last thing he said to us?" Jason asked, his voice softer now, but only a thin layer veiling the pain of remembrance. "He left because he couldn't face his own truth." "Are you going to do the same?" Jake's hands clenched the microphone, his knuckles white from the effort of holding on. "I want to let that happen to me," he burst out, emotion breaking through, igniting the quiet room. The audience shifted closer, eyes wide in anticipation of his vulnerability. "Then stop running," Jason insisted, his gaze unwavering. "You deserve to confront it, to reclaim your story from the ashes. Don't let him take any more from you." The thought struck a match in Jake's chest. Suddenly, he could envision his journey not as a tale of flight from the past but instead as an act of willingness to embody all parts of himself, the light and the shadows. A ripple of hope stirred within, a distant echo of what healing could feel like. The crowd leaned in, breaths caught in unity. Would he share this battle, the very fear that chained him? The pause felt like a void, an invitation to step beyond the threshold. I don't know if I'm ready," Jake finally admitted, his heart racing as he felt the pressure of 100 eyes. But somewhere in that uncertainty, he sensed the stirrings of courage. There was a moment then, just a heartbeat, where the past and present danced around him. What if he could own everything? What if I chose to face it now? Jake said, a slow determination filling his words. Excitement flickered through the audience, a rising tide of hope that anything was possible. He felt a longing for authenticity, a desire to step into the light and embrace the truth rather than flee from it. Just as he prepared to take a step forward, the tension palpable, a voice from the back interrupted the charged air. "But what will happen if you do?" Jake turned, the weight of that question hanging heavy in the space. All eyes were now on him, grappling with his next move. The anticipation gripped his heart, and with it, a realization surged. The truth could set him free, but it might also dismantle everything he built. What came next would define not just his identity but the very bonds he had created. Would he dare to discover the hidden parts of himself, or would fear drag him back into the shadows? The room held its breath, waiting for the answer. Jake's heart beat against his ribcage like a drum, the words of the audience ringing in his ears. That simple question, "But what will happen if you do?" was not just a challenge, it pierced right through him, unveiling the layers of fear wrapped around his heart. That he took a deep breath, drawing in the courage that flickered at the edges of his uncertainty. Every pair of eyes in the room felt like a weight, demanding honesty and clarity. A part of him wanted to retreat, to hide behind the walls he built to keep the past securely locked away. The thought of dismantling those defenses caused a chill to run down his spine, but another part, a stronger, more insistent voice urged him to stand tall. What if this was the moment he had been waiting for? What if sharing his truth could finally release him from the chains of his father's disappointment and abandonment? I guess I'll never know if I don't try," Jake finally said, his voice gaining strength. The nerve still quivered beneath his surface, yet he felt an ember of hope crackle to life within him. Jason nodded, a silent encouragement, as though he could feel Jake's shifting resolve. The room was still, captivated by this unfolding moment. Jake glanced around, taking in the faces that stared at him, some filled with concern, others brimming with anticipation. He saw friends, acquaintances, people he had touched with his story, and now they were here, willing to absorb whatever he had to say. "Okay," he began tentatively, words spilling out like water from a cracked dam. "My father left when I was a kid. I often wondered what I did wrong or if I wasn't enough. That thought wrapped around me like a vine, squeezing tighter every day." A collective sigh escaped the crowd, like a gasp of sympathy. Jake felt the warmth of their empathy wash over him, as if they were collectively saying, "We hear you." "I thought if I just kept moving, if I built this life, I could outrun that pain," he continued, feeling a weight lifting with each confession. "But running didn't make it disappear. It lingered, shaped my fears, even shaped my relationships." He hesitated, the vulnerability felt raw. "I thought success would heal me." The audience shifted, a silence settling, echoing the honesty that hung in the air. "But the truth is, I didn't owe my father forgiveness, I owe myself the chance to heal. To stop hiding behind this wall," Jake admitted, his heart racing. "So maybe facing this is what I need. Maybe it's time to reclaim my story." He reclaimed it with an urgency that seized the moment. The room erupted in a stir of murmurs and gasps of realization. He glanced towards Jason, who wore an expression of pride and relief. Then he looked at the crowd, where he saw a few nodding in understanding. "What if I chose to face it now?" he whispered, the question lingering in the air again, a haunting echo of the transformation he was igniting within himself. The silence that followed felt electrifying, a pause before the storm of change. He realized that this wasn't just his personal battle to confront, it was a shared experience, something that reached into the lives of those listening. Each face reflected his internal struggle, hinting at their own stories of pain and longing. "For too long, I let that pain dictate my life. I refuse to do that anymore," Jake declared, the fire of determination burning brighter in his chest. At that moment, a woman in the back, the same one who questioned him before, rose slowly. "But what happens if you face this truth? What if it changes everything?" Jake took a deep breath. This time, though, he felt prepared. "It might change everything," he admitted, locking eyes with her, with the audience. "But perhaps that's exactly what needs to happen." Hope surged through the room. He could feel it tangible in the air, a collective heartbeat of possibility. Jake's voice steadied as he spoke. "What if I need to become the man I was meant to be, despite it all?" As he awaited an answer, a certainty gripped him. In facing his past, maybe he could hold on to his future, too, and just like that, from the depths of fear, a flicker of hope ignited. What would happen now that he had opened the door to healing? Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end but the beginning of his journey toward freedom. The audience leaned in, breaths held tight. Would they join him taking those first steps, or would they watch him break free alone? Jake stood there, the weight of the silence pressing against him. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, ready to leap into the sky. The murmurs of the crowd were distant, overshadowed by the rapid drumbeat in his chest. He scanned the faces again, recognizing friends who had fought their own battles. Their expressions mirrored his, filled with a mixture of curiosity and concern. There was an unspoken agreement among them, they were all here for a reason. He could feel it deep within, a bond formed not just by shared pain, but by the possibility of transformation. What if I told you that all this time, I thought my worth rested in what I could achieve? Jake said, his voice steady despite the tremor beneath. I built walls so high to hide the hurt. But those walls protected me, they kept me trapped. I'm done being a prisoner in my own story. A ripple spread through the audience. He could see some heads nodding, their eyes glistening with understanding. It felt like they were leaning in, drawn closer by the gravity of his words. What if I have the power to rewrite my story? What if the path to healing means showing up authentically, unapologetically? The woman at the back, the one with the piercing gaze, seemed to consider this. Her brow furrowed. So, what's next for you? If you let go of the past, what do you hold on to? Jake took a moment to think about her question. He thought about the faces of those who had nurtured him, the friends who had stood by him. Hope. I'll hold on to hope. The belief that I can be more than the parts of me that have been broken. He felt the atmosphere shift, an electric charge building as a wave of emotion washed over him. Hope was contagious, he could see it spreading through the crowd like wildfire. More and more, he saw allies in their eyes. He took another breath, rallying himself. Facing the truth means I have to confront my father too. It's not just about the anger and pain, I need to understand why it haunted me for so long. The woman's expression softened. And when you see him, what will you say? I don't know yet, Jake admitted, a bittersweet smile creeping onto his face. But I plan to tell him that I've earned my forgiveness. I've fought hard to be here. At that moment, the crowd erupted into applause, the sound filling the space, a wave of acceptance and support that felt almost tangible. He smiled, the warmth enveloping him like a long-awaited embrace. Then, a voice called out from the back, a man Jake recognized as a childhood friend. What if you find him and he doesn't want to talk? What if he isn't ready for your truth? Jake's heart sank for just a moment before his resolve solidified. Then I'll share it for myself, he replied, the conviction in his voice unwavering. I've spent too long dwelling on what others think. This time, it's about my journey. A hush fell over the audience once more, but it wasn't empty this time. It buzzed with a mix of admiration and anticipation. But just as he felt the tide of empowerment swell, a shiver pierced through him. He realized that confronting his father would not just shake the foundation of his past, but also tremble the ground he stood on now. What if, by facing him, I discover I'm not just confronting my past but reshaping my future? The question hung in the air, heavy with possibility. As Jake absorbed the response on the faces surrounding him, a cocktail of fear, hope, and solidarity, he suddenly felt the pulse of a powerful new chapter ahead. What would it mean for him to reshape his future? Would the outcome be what he dreamed, or would it unravel the carefully constructed life he had fought so hard to build? The thrill of the unknown rushed through him. And that was when the door swung open, allowing a figure silhouetted against the light to step inside the room. The collective gasp was a jolt to his heart. Would this unexpected visitor deliver answers, or open even more questions? The figure walked into the room, and as the light enveloped them, the identity became clear. It was his father. The air shifted, thick with tension and disbelief. Jake's breath caught in his throat. The man who had once filled his life with shadows now stood before him, a half-formed figure that seemed to encompass both guilt and hope. Jake, his father began, but the word hung there, unfinished, suspended between them, like a bridge overwhelmed by the weight of unspoken hurt. Jake felt an electric current run through him, a mix of anger and confusion swirling like a tempest in his chest. But intertwined with those feelings was something deeper, an aching desire for closure. The echoes of his childhood, filled with longing for this very moment, pulsed in time with his heart. "Why are you here?" Jake finally managed to ask, his voice steadier than he felt. "After all this time, you show up now?" "I need to explain," his father replied, stepping cautiously toward the stage. The audience's collective breath seemed to hold, eyes darting between father and son, sensing the intensity in the air. "Explain?" Jake echoed, incredulity spilling over. "You left. You didn't even say goodbye. All the times I waited for you, where were you?" "I made mistakes," his father said, his voice thick with regret. "I wasn't ready emotionally or mentally to face my responsibilities. I thought running away would protect you from my failures. But it didn't protect me, did it? It left me alone with the pain." Jake shot back, the anger he'd buried now surfacing in raw waves. "Did you think that disappearing would save me from missing you?" "I didn't think at all," his father admitted, his expression flickering with honesty. "But I never stopped thinking about you. Every day I regretted my decisions, but I was too scared to confront them, to rectify what I had left behind." As the words landed, Jake's tension began to loosen, just a notch. He noticed the flicker of vulnerability in his father's eyes, a reflection of the pain he had carried for years. Could this man really mean what he was saying? "I've spent so long painting my life in a way that excluded you," Jake continued, his voice losing its edge. "But I found strength in my family, in my sister and in Elena. I learned what love is, and it's not what you left behind. It's what you foster." His father's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I can see that. I always felt like I was unworthy of that love, but I'm ready now, Jake. Ready to face the truth. Ready to be a part of your life, if you'll let me." Jake's heart raced, a battle inside him swirling again, hope warring with skepticism. Was it right to hope for reconciliation? Did he even want this man back in his life? Was he worth the risk of heartbreak? The crowd leaned in, holding their collective breath, invested in this moment just as much as Jake was. Suddenly, he felt a surge of empathy. He understood that healing would take time, not only for him but for his father too. "Look, I can't just forget what happened or pretend that it didn't hurt," Jake said, his voice breaking slightly. "But if you want to be part of my life, you have to show up for real this time. You have to be there for me, for Sophia, because we deserve that." The raw honesty in his voice resonated through the room. His father nodded slowly, clearly overwhelmed. "I'll do whatever it takes." Jake took a deep breath, allowing a sliver of hope to weave its way through his heart. "Then let us start with being honest with each other," he said. "And you can tell me why you really left." In that moment, a layer of tension melted away, replaced by the potential for a new beginning. The two of them, once estranged, now stood on a threshold of growth. Not just for Jake's personal journey, but for the fractured relationship of a father and son eager to rebuild. Cheers erupted from the audience, echoing the shift from darkness into light. Applause rolled like thunder, filling the air with warmth and understanding. Jake's heart soared. The road ahead was uncertain, laced with vulnerability, but he could see the beginnings of something beautiful. Jake looked back at the crowd, his spirit ablaze with hope. "This journey isn't just about me anymore. It's a reminder that love can rise from the ashes of our past, that we can learn to heal, together." The applause swelled again, feeling like a wave of support. As his eyes met his father's, Jake began to feel the barriers fall away. Yes, the way forward was difficult, but together, they could find a path. With new resolve, Jake stepped back from the microphone, feeling lighter than he had in years. "Thank you all for being part of this journey," he said, his voice clear now. "And for reminding me that true success is not in winning but in showing up, living, and loving." The audience erupted in cheers, not just for Jake's transformation but for their shared humanity. Jake stepped down from the stage, embraces and warm smiles awaited him. Elena and Mia rushed forward, wrapping him in love. "See, love conquers all," Elena whispered as she hugged him tightly. It was a promise of unity, of family, and a testament to the strength born from vulnerability. In the end, the crowded room felt like home. The ties of love strengthened, ready to weather any storm. Jake understood now that family wasn't just where you came from, but where you chose to go. And with a full heart, he stepped boldly into the future. Now, as you reflect on this incredible transformation and journey of love and healing, remember to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, comment your reactions and feelings about the ending, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. True fans understand the importance of this community and your actions.